Young people complain that there's no book on how to live, and there isn't. Well, there are people who say that the Bible is a book on how to live, but really it's just a number of stories about people who were living and in their time and what they were doing. So the issue is, why isn't there a book on what to expect? And the reality is that's because the older generation doesn't make a book. So I really think that the older generation somewhat owes the young generation a look at their own lives a little bit, so as to give a little perception on what life does in fact hold for you and how you grow up. The biggest things that all of us will face, whether male or female, is the fact that we want to have relationships with each other, particularly between male and female. And apart from all the miscellaneous perversion aside, we're just going to look at male and female. That is nature's way, and that is all that is important to me. So, find something else from somebody else if you need something other than male to female. Given that, the reality is that young men have no interest in long-term relationships of any kind until they, get to at least 18 or 20 years old. Young women seem to have an almost immediate need for a long-term relationship at like 12. So that is a major difference between us. And there are a lot of differences between male and female. No, you can't buy, participation. You have to earn it. And one of the things that we do to earn a relationship with each other is to respect each other. If you don't respect each other, you don't have a relationship. You have someone trying to use the other one for whatever purpose, and those purposes are, money or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. It's a purpose that is not love if it doesn't contain respect. Respect means that you value each other for the things that you are, or the things that you do, and the things that you did, for the life that you live. It is a lack of judgment, basically. And the only measurement you get is that your life has value to me. So if you achieve that, then you can have a relationship. Unfortunately, relationships between boys and girls and men and women, we're just going to call them all the same. Just leave it at male and female. And they don't really change much over the years. Unfortunately, you can't have a relationship with male or female without accepting the reality that if you do in fact value each other, then it is very hard to leave each other. And I don't say that as when you leave each other, that doesn't mean that you don't love each other. It just means that I have something else in my life that has more importance than our relationship at this time. So the problem is that women in particular, I only see it from one side, so we're just going to go with that side. And the problem is that men might think that love is a great thing, and we can share some time with each other, and then we can go apart, and we can live a little bit different life, or find someone else. Not because I don't love you, because I'm not ready for a long-term commitment yet. That's the basic premise of the whole thing. Until I am ready for a long-term relationship, it's not going to happen unless it's forced. And if it's forced, then you'll just end up paying later. Women, on the other hand, cannot seem to do that. If you have a loving, respectful relationship with them, whether it's long or short, it seems like if you leave, it seems like you're practically tearing their heart out. So there's no simple, and there's no effective, and there's no real way to say goodbye if you have been valued by a girl or a woman. You just can't. It doesn't work. They won't let you go. And unfortunately, the one thing common to all female people is that they know that pregnancy is a real concern, and it can create a real confrontation in terms of, do you really want to leave, or do you really want to stay? And whether or not it's fair isn't the issue if the girl claims she's pregnant. And of course, a lot of the time, she's lying to buy more time. And when she's lying to buy more time, and if you stay, then she takes methods and realities to cause this to happen. And then, of course, there's abortion and all that. So, as far as being young and starting out in the world, trying to have a relationship between male and female, or boy and girl, the reality is that once you open the door, you can't close it. Not without a lot of tears and a lot of heartbreak and a lot of complications along the way. That's because when someone finds something they do value, something that makes a real, honest, true difference to me, or to them, there's no way that you can, let that go, or particularly women let that go, without causing them heartbreak. It's a very real thing. It is, the assertion that, you didn't love me enough, or you didn't want me enough, or I'm not pretty enough, or whatever it is. But the fact of the matter is, and young boys and men in particular, it's none of those things. Not really, anyway. What it is I'm not ready for a long-term relationship yet. Doesn't mean I won't be. It just means I'm not ready for a long-term relationship yet. And of course, there's something in women. Nature puts it there that says, I want you to have a long-term commitment to some degree. Of course, there are others that'll, simply use you or abuse you instead. And that's where respect comes in. If you respect each other, you value each other. And if you value each other, then there is no simple sexual answers that you can take. And of course, sex enters in a big hurry most of the time. People like to experiment, or young people want to experiment and find out what this body can do, both men and women, or boy and girl. And unfortunately, unless the young man has found a moment that said, this penis, let's just go with the terms, is not a toy, it can do real harm to you or to someone else. If you haven't faced a single second of wait a minute, this isn't just a game, then it is a game, and it is a toy. And they don't understand much or anything else until it's not a toy. And you have to hear a cry, or see a cry, or have a little heartbreak somewhere down the line, or whatever it is, before you understand this is not a game and this is not a toy, and there are real life consequences to walking out into the world and just doing whatever seems okay at the moment, or even doing what you're asked to do, begged to do, or whatever it is. There are consequences. And the consequence is that you can't just walk away. Not because you can't walk away, because there are tears that come with it. And those tears are important. It's not, if you respect and value someone, you don't want to see them cry. And unfortunately, going to see them cry if you walk away again and again and again. There's just no way, if you were a respectful and loving person and had a lovely time, that you can walk away, at least in my experience, from a young woman without her experiencing some heartbreak. And the only way you can end up, the only final solution to the thing is that you either have to just, commit to someone and kind of get this over with, and just take your chances even before you really understand, or if you walk in and before you really know whether this is the right person or not, you just take your chances, or you stop having relationships with women, because if you do, you know that this is going to end up badly if you're not ready for a long-term relationship. So, it's a choice. And of course, the problem with sex itself is that these are chemicals that have an influence on you, and anything that is going to have an influence on you that can cause you to want to do this again, that's a problem. It can be a problem to you. Once you get started with sex, you are innocent until you actually have sex. And the fact of the matter is that once you have it, then the chemicals inside your body and even are much more aggressive. You know what they are, you know what they can do. And while you might have had some problem with them prior to sex, they will just increase. So it's not so easy to just walk away, as you will find out. So let's talk about sex a little bit. Might as well. Male and female, that's what it's about, in a large portion of the reality between us. Not everything by any means, not even the best things, but it is something. So if you're young and you get started with sex, the first thing that happens is that now you are committed to each other. In other words, a girl expects you to want that again. She expects you to behave in a way that says you are mine, and they make all kinds of methods and chains and what have you to ensure that that's so. It's not a simple thing. You can't just walk away. You can't. Not without hurting her a lot. And I suppose she can't walk away from you either. I don't really know, to be honest. But if you have sex, unless you're doing it wrong, and lots of men do it wrong for their whole lives, they just play with their penis, using a girl for a rubbing post. Basically. Women hate that. They do. They hate that. You're not loving them. You're not wanting them. You're not doing anything to please them. You're just using your sex for yourself as a toy, and using them as a body to work that with. And the consequence of that is that soon they start thinking they have a headache. When you get married, if you are not having sex, it's because you're not doing it right. You didn't make a decision to make or hope for their own happiness. It's two together, not just you, not just their body. You have to have to respect them. You have to accept the idea that your job is to please them. That's what sex is about. You're supposed to please them, they're supposed to please you. If you do that, I guarantee women will want to have sex with you. You'll be lucky to get out of the bedroom door. so do things that please them, not just you. So, try to remember that, and your sexual relations will be much better. Kissing is the first step towards sex, to some extent. It doesn't have to be, but it can be. Regardless of that, don't force it. Kissing is really your chance to prove how artistic you are, in a large part. What can you do to make me believe that you can be creative in this process of us having sex together, or life together? And that means you meet in the middle, kissing wise, and you start explaining how gentle and kind and creative you can be. Try to employ that, and you will be better off. I'm not going to get into the miscellaneous details. That's just not real. Well, it is real, but work them out for yourself, I guess. Anyway, one of the things that is important about sexual relations between male and female is the fact that it is better to wait until you're married. It eliminates an awful lot of trouble. It eliminates the grasp people have, or male or female has, on you that says, you have to accept and choose me for the rest of your life. And I want you to think about that the rest of your life. If it's if you get started with sex, then you get invested with sex, and then you get, this is the person that's very hard to get away from. Very hard to get away from. So once you get started with sex, unless you want to cry, it ought to be the one that you think you would hope to live with, or at least for the moment hope to live with, not just use for sex, hope to live with. And the most important part of waiting until you're married or fully committed to each other in some form or fashion is the fact that sex bridges the gaps. When you have a relationship with someone else, that relationship is going to have bumps and turns and problems and all kinds of things that you have to work out together. A lot of the time that's not going to work out so well, because one side wants this and the other side wants that. And why aren't you listening to me and all that? And it's very hard to do in a lot of ways and a lot of things. But sex, if you are new at it, makes it extremely lot easier to do, because you can avoid the problems and just have sex to work out the miscellaneous details. And okay, let's start again, let's try again, let's balance this out somehow between us. And that is what sex is for in marriage, or similar. So, there are all kinds of consequences to marriage today. The reality is that people can use you and abuse you and steal your stuff and all kinds of things. It has changed, and not for the better. You shouldn't worry about sex with the opposite sex. You shouldn't give it a concern, because it will happen when it needs to happen, when it is chosen to happen, rather than just going out to have sex. if you fall into that trap, it's because you're addicted to the chemicals. You want the chemicals, that's why you want the sex. Or, you want to capture someone. And so you go shopping for them. And when you're shopping for someone to fill the gaps in your life with, then they start measuring you. And when they're measuring you, they're just shopping. So, what can you do for me, and what will you do for me, and how much do you got that I can take? Kind of thing. Like it or not, that's reality in life. So, try to understand the situation before you get involved in places that are too hard to get away. Intimacy is intimacy, and you really can't hide from each other, particularly not as the male part of that equation. I don't know the other side, but you can't hide from women. They know when you want them. They know when you love them. They know when you're not loving them. They know when you don't care. They know. So bear that in mind. They also find methods of, well, let's just not go there. I guess the most important thing that you can learn, or prior to anything else, is that the relationship you share that forms a lifetime is one that's based on respect. You have to give freedom in order to create that. If someone is not free, to be who they need to be without you changing them, you don't get to change them. You get to ask them to change if you want, and tell them why you want them to change, but you don't get to change them. Changing them is manipulating them and controlling them. Don't do that. You have to accept each other for who you are, not for bodies that you can use, or money that you think you want, or a job that you think you need, or prestige, or whatever it is. Don't do that. Love is the only thing that matters. And if you have love, the rest of life will be okay. But that doesn't mean you get what you want. It just means that, if love is okay with you, if that's what you want in your life, then love can make you happy. If you want, fancy cars and big houses and things like that, or a trophy wife, or whatever it is you want, that's shopping. And shopping is not going to make you happy. You might be content if you get all that what you want, but you won't be happy. So you have to figure out what is happiness for you. And that begins with freedom. The freedom, the right to do what you want to do without having someone get in the way, make decisions for you that's going to change your life. You want to be able to make the decisions that control and dictate and determine the future for your own life. Isn't that true for you? It is certainly true for us all. So, when you want to have a relationship, the first thing you need to do is decide what you can be free with. And the most important thing you're going to be able to determine that with is what the other person wants. Want determines everything about what your life in the future is going to be together. It really does, apart from accidents and things like that. As far as decisions go, what somebody wants is going to determine the direction of their life. It's going to determine then the direction of your life, because if you walk together, these are, the places we are going to go. If they won't accept your wants, well, then you're going to part ways. Might be sooner, might be later, might even be never, but you're not going to know happiness if you can't walk together. You have to walk together, and that means you have to care about each other enough to make decisions that work for both of you, or allow the other person to do what they need to do, and just survive on your own if that's what's required for a little time here or there. We have to be happy to make you happy. You have to be happy to make us happy, and we have to be free enough to make ourselves happy. And that doesn't mean you get to go out and have sex with 10 people or some such thing as that. I mean, be realistic about it. Be honest about it, and you'll be okay. You should remember and always never forget that want is the basis of every lie. You don't lie if you don't want something that you would not otherwise get. Or you don't lie if you're not trying to hide something you don't want the other one to know. Want determines every lie. So what the other person wants is very important. It's also very important that discipline enters in, because if you are a person that's very disciplined and you marry a person that's very undisciplined, you're not going to get along. It's like the person who sits on the couch and watches TV all day, when married to a person who is out exercising and wanting to go hiking and all kinds of things like that every day. These things don't blend together well. You might call it opposites attract, but opposites do not always attract. Or they might attract in the beginning, but to balance me out, but they're going to divide. So try to be disciplined in your search for someone to share your lifetime with, whatever that might be. And lifetime can be a very short thing. So spend every day as if, it might be your last, because it might be. You can't tell. This world is certainly not at rest or at peace, or anything that expects the future to be certain by any means. You do need a little bit of order in life. Order means that you got to go to work. When you have to go to work, you have to accept the fact that we have to go to work, or he has to go to work, or we can't spend this much money, or you can't spend that much money. You have to be realistic about what order will allow you to do. And you also have to be balanced in life. If and you're not willing to give a little and take a little, and that means you have to expect to pay a little more or for somebody, and I don't mean that in the literal sense. I mean, they need a little bit more than you do right at the moment, and you need to give them what they need. Whereas if you need a little more at the moment, they need to give you what you need. And that might be better said as the reason sons love their mother is because mother takes a little better care of them, usually, and does what they need to do. And of course, young women believe that that's a terrible, terrible thing, because it supposedly forces them to be their mother. Well, I got news for you. It's not being your mother, it's caring about the person you're trying to spend your life with. If you care about the person you're spending your life with, you're just going to want to help them help themselves. That doesn't mean get in there and do everything for them or whatever. Help them help themselves. And if they're hurt, or if they're working too hard, or whatever it is, make some exceptions for that. And as far as sex goes, in marriage or long-term relationships or short-term relationships, and bear in mind, if you got a very physical job, it's going to take a lot of extra energy out of you, and you aren't going to be wanting sex on a regular basis, right every day kind of thing. That's just not going to happen. You have to, have enough energy to do the work so you can survive, and then you have to store up enough energy to want to have sex, or desire to have sex more correctly. If you don't store up the energy, sex won't be any good. And sex isn't likely to happen every day anyway, as young people sometimes seem to think. That's just not realistic. Let's talk about the differences between want and love. There's an awful lot of people that want someone for a variety of reasons, including sex or money or power or whatever it is you think, or for much more useful purposes, such as, you make me happy, or I respect you, or whatever it is. But that isn't love. Love or want has a purpose that deliberately intends to have you do something for me. Love, on the other side of that, is a purpose, or more correctly, a desire that lets me do something for you rather than you want something from me. The difference is a tiny bit subtle, perhaps, but it's love isn't about you as much as it is about me and my desire to make you happy. Want, on the other hand, is about using you in some form or fashion, or owning you or possessing you so that you can make me happy. See, they're actually very different things. So you might want, because everybody wants what they want, and that's all that I want, and I want everything I want, and I don't want nothing but what I want. Kind of thing. That's a rampant disease in society, well, at least in America. I want. Well, that's not love. It's never going to be love, and it's never going to make you happy. You can't buy happiness. You can buy contentment. You can buy friends, if you call them friends. But you can't buy love, and you can't buy a true lover. This is a commitment that each makes to the other one without a cost. In other words, if you want me to love you, that doesn't really count. I need to choose for myself that I can and will love you, that I desire it in my heart, and will give you openly what you need to be happy, in the hope that you will return that happiness to me in your own way. It's not an owed thing. You can't buy or sell love, no matter what people call it. So you can't make people love you. They have to choose it. They have to desire it in their heart. You can't really tempt them. You can, but it won't work out. They have to come to that conclusion themselves. And you don't get to choose. You get to choose whether you love someone, but you do not get to choose whether they love you, nor how much, nor how long. And if you have love in your heart, and somehow or another they lose that love for you, when they leave, regardless of the reason, when they leave, they are going to take whatever love you gave them with you. And because love is a gift, and if you give it away to someone else, then you don't have it anymore unless they give it back to you, which is why heartbreaks occur. You know, and that's both good and bad, but anyway, it's not really their fault. You can't condemn them for it, for leaving. You know, they have only one life to live. You know, this is humanity, and we get one journey through time, and you have to make your own decision. You know, if you let someone else make your decision for you, then you have to live the life that they chose for you rather than the life you chose for you, and that can be a bad thing because then you get to blame them, and that, of course, is bad. It has all kinds of consequences. Never, ever, ever measure another life, because if you do measure a different life, any other life, I don't care what it is, if you measure another life, you will end up with the potential to call them worthless. And if you start calling another life worthless, you end up being able to hate them, if that is your choice. And the descent from what is life and love can then begin and take you with it. So don't measure anyone. The law has to measure consequences. The law has to measure evidence. You know, we have to make decisions that we don't want to make regarding other people if they create a problem that has to be dealt with. It's not a choice. It has to be dealt with. But as far as human relationships, don't measure each other. Never measure each other. Especially not if you say you love each other. You just have to let them go if they want to go. And I have walked away from, I'm divorced after a couple of years. That's been 40 years ago. And understand some of the things that from experience. But I left, or she left, or whatever you want to call it, because our paths were different. We did not need or want to go to the same place. She wanted a much more common life, and I chose to what is a very different life. So, we have to make our own decisions. You have to follow your own path. You have to accept the consequences for the choices that you make. And you have to accept and deal with the realities that come with it. Yeah, we all do. There's just no exception for that. So let's talk about why women love men or men love women. What is it that gets you to the relationship rather than separate? Let's just assume that you want love and are looking for a long-term relationship and not trying to shop for someone. Prior to that, when you are trying to shop for someone, when you are trying to use someone for sex or anything like that, the flattery and temptation are just forms of trying to use and abuse you. You have to accept the consequences for what you do, and they are much greater than what you think, because if you affect somebody's real long-term life, you've made a decision that has consequences for you too, and consequences for them. There are people who have one relationship and that's it. There are people who have lots of relationships and may or may not ever find anyone. There are people who are very beautiful, women who are very beautiful and can't find a date. And there are women who are far less than beautiful, really, and find all the dates they can want. Some of them buy it with sex, and some of them don't. It's just a matter of whether or not you know how to treat men. And it would, to a large extent, is how whether or not men know how to treat women. We are different, so we have different ways and different needs and different things, and it is like a single word describes it reasonably well. My ex-wife asked, did I need her? And my term of need is that if I don't get this, then I won't survive life. I'm going to die if you don't get what you need. That's what need is. You need this to survive. Okay, well, later you understand that need is not the same thing in a woman's mind. Not even close to the same thing in a woman's mind. Not even close. So, there you go. So, anyway, relationship forms around the things that we can do together. And you can argue that or not, but relationships form around the things we can and will do together. And you can have a very lovely time in all kinds of ways with each other prior to that, and you can even get married without that kind of a real life commitment. But the end result is that if we can't walk together, we need to be able to walk together, to form a life together, to share a life, to live a life that will have meaning to us. I need to be able to live my life with you, and that means that you have to live your life with me, and that means we have to choose what we can or cannot do together. It really is pretty much that simple. Now, I know that a lot of people don't value that. There's a lot of apparently a lot of men who want a trophy wife, and that's all they know and that's all they think of. There's a lot of women who want a trophy man, and women have a whole different idea of what a trophy is than what men do. Or at least, their idea of what they want for the same thing. Pretty girls think they can have anybody they want. And a lot of times they can, but that doesn't mean anybody's going to be happy over it. Because beauty is in fact freedom. What you do with your freedom. How you spend your life with your freedom to choose what you want to do and what you want to be and what you want to share. And how you wish to care. So that all becomes what is or is not beautiful. Pretty, on the other hand, in my own lingo, is someone who is just, nature made well. so there's no denying somebody has a body that nature made well. It's not a sin to look. It's not a sin to have a body that way. It's not a sin not to have a body that way. Whatever is useful or important to you. But one of the things that you do need to know, if you are a lady that, in particular, that has nature's been very giving to, is that don't disrespect men in particular. And not women preferably either, because they just get mad, and if they get mad, there are consequences. So try not to make them hate you, which is what you do when you, utterly refuse to give them the time of day, so to speak. Just be polite. You don't have to be. You don't have to be obnoxious or fighting, or just be polite. And I know, and I've seen evidence of it, at least, that pretty girls, it's not always a blessing by any means, in a lot of ways. So it really isn't. So just do the best you can with it. And the best thing that you can do with it is when men come up to you, if you don't want them, direct them to your friends, your girls, the people that need select and match them up. That's the best you can do. And I think it's what nature would ask of you, honestly, for what you were given. At least that can help lots of people. And helping lots of people is a good thing. One of the things that is most destructive to male and female relationships is women tend to want a baby right now, or to use a baby right now, and a lot of times men are not ready for that, even if they say they are. So you have to wait until both of you are ready. I'm serious. You have to wait until both of you are ready, because if you are not ready, then it's the child that will suffer, and you will suffer, and the relationship will suffer, and all kinds of bad things will come of it. You must be both prepared, and that means that, even if you want a child right now, even if you think you have a right to a child right now, or whatever it is that you have decided, or your parents, or whatever it is, you don't have a right to a child right now unless the person you're having a baby with is in fact ready to have a child right now. The consequences are very numerous, and they're all bad. And if you wait until you are honestly ready right now to have your child, then life will give you a blessing. Whereas if you don't, bad things do occur. You have to respect the fact that life has to be built one piece at a time. When you're young, it takes a lot of work to get a life together, and you don't really have a lot of extra time or extra money or anything else for having a child. You need to wait until you're ready, both ready, and then it can be a blessing. It's very easy, actually, to love someone. I can love many. And we're not talking sex here, we're talking love. There's a difference. So, the real thing here is that life has only two directions to it. You either choose with what you do to love life itself, and that means all the things that go with it, the living things that you work and live with and have a relationship with and so on, or you hate them, which is the opposite of that. Love and hate are very, very opposite things. You cannot have one and share life with the other. You have to choose either love or you will choose either hate. Everybody tries to live in the middle of that and say, well, I want to love, you, and I want to hate them, or whatever it is. That actually doesn't work. They're different. You can't be a single solid identity of life, someone that can be depended upon, unless, you are either love or hate. That's the choice you get. You get to choose, like I'm walking to love, or I'm walking to hate, or they are, and you don't live together. Because love and hate are opposites. They don't go together. And the middle ground is just a lie. You want this, you want that, you want the other thing. It's just a lie. Every other decision is either just, killing time, so to speak, or survival. This is required of me to stay alive, or to have things that help me stay alive, and so on. So every decision you make is either love or hate. And if you find someone that makes a decision to love and accepts you, then it's very easy to love them, or they to love you. And the consequence of that is loving someone is easy, if that is the direction you choose. In contrast to that, finding someone that you can walk down the aisle with, which means that's just the first few little steps. It's a journey in life together. Finding someone who can and will accept the journey that's in front of you, the kind of life that you're going to live, and the kind of life that you're going to choose, and the things that you're going to work with, and so on. You have to work with that together, or it won't work. Or it's very hard, or it can be very hard. So when somebody loves you, I mean, in a short-term relationship, if it's honest and valued and true, the fact that they might not want to stay for a lifetime doesn't mean they didn't love you. It just means that, you're not going down the same path together. And you really do have to go down the same path together, because even though, we have one life to live, and love is the most valuable thing in the entire universe. It really is. It's the most valuable thing in the entire universe. But, you still have to live. You still have to survive. You still have to make decisions about what is the most important thing in your life. Even if it's not the most valuable thing in your life, you have to make decisions about what is the most important thing that, you need your life to do in this time. So it's not just about you. A lifetime commitment, or whatever it is you're asking for, it's not just about you. You need to bear that in mind. Honestly. Desire is an element of decision to accept that I can love this person forever. It doesn't mean you have a long-term relationship. It just means it's the beginning of love. Desire does not occur unless you trust someone. Therefore, you have to have a moment in your relationship, in your life, in your acquaintance that says, I can trust you. So when you have trust, and some people trust love as something that cannot die. Well, in many people it can, because they're not committed to love. They don't know how to be committed to love, or they don't want to be committed to love. They want to hate as well. They want what they want. They want. It doesn't matter. But nonetheless, with desire, you get passion. And passion, through desire, changes love, or sexual love, entirely. And if you find it, you'll know it. So passion isn't about chemicals. Passion is about you and you then have to have passion for me. So it's a mutual thing. There is no passion unless both have passion. There can be want, and there certainly can be aggressive sex and things like that, but you're not going to find passion, a desire both of you share that gives you an elemental happiness. You have to have trust for that, and you can only build trust by finding truths together. What is true doesn't change. And that's why they call it a truth. I can depend upon this because I know it won't change. So what you do and you don't do together, that proves that you can be trusted, determines your future. And if you show that you can't be trusted, well, then your future dies with you. Let's use it. Your future ends, changes. So, and everybody has their own right to choose for themselves what their life will be. You can't make them desire you. You can't make them not desire you unless you enforce that. But it's not a game. And you need to be true to yourself. Don't just surrender what you want because somebody else wants something else. Or don't just choose to desire someone that you think desires you. There has to be something real there, or it won't last a lifetime. I'll just end by saying don't give each other diseases knowingly. It's not fair. Don't believe the liars, the traitors, and the thieves either. A vasectomy does have consequences. Don't let them betray you. They have many. No, I don't have one, but I can see the cost and the consequences. And I know that a vasectomy takes away the chemicals. And if sex for you is about the chemicals, and sex is about the chemicals, because it's sex, it's not, it's not love, it's not relationships, just sex is just sex. Now, and there's actually a wide variety of sex, but and which includes love. It's a big discussion, actually. Nonetheless, I know that young women think that, well, the man is going to do this for me. Oh, how great. Well, if he doesn't want to have sex with you after he has it, because there are no chemicals, and then if there are no chemicals, just the act of physically won't have the pleasure that the chemicals bring. So your sexual life will diminish greatly, and everything that is about it will diminish greatly too. Don't do it. Well, good luck to you. Life isn't a game. Sex isn't a game. Our future isn't a game. Just do the best you can.